What is the abomination of desolation? What is it really? Is it what we have been taught? Let's dive into that today. Hi, my name is Kenda. Welcome to Lift Your Spirit. For those of you who might have missed last week's video, I recommend you go watch it. We talked about the tribulation and whether or not the tribulation in Revelation already happened. And I know that seems like a crazy idea, but they've hidden many things from us. I recommend watching this video after you've watched that one. You don't have to, but this is really going to be a 3-part series, and so it's best if you watch that one first. I urge you to stay to the end because the last thing that I'm going to talk about, it's just unbelievable that we didn't know this, that we didn't see this. Yesterday I talked about this book, Victorious Eschatology, which explains that the tribulation in Revelation already happened. And I said there were things, including that, in this book that made my jaw drop. And today I want to talk about a couple more things that, again, made my jaw drop and was just astounding. Before I get to those two things, I want to give you just a quick list of the things that they talk about in this book, of questions that you will now probably have if you're willing to look into it with me. Okay, so there's 15 things, but I'm going to run through them very quickly. The first question that you may have that is answered in this book is the question about the generation in which this all happens, in which the tribulation happens. Jesus says in this generation, and there is a lot of controversy around that, and there is a lot of speculation and different things that it could mean. But this book explains what they believe it means, and they believe it meant the generation that was in front of Jesus, that he was speaking to at the time. And I agree with that. And I actually agree with most things in this book. There are a couple of things that I don't agree with. And part of it is because they didn't know at the time they wrote this book, which was in 2006, that they didn't know was going to happen. They didn't know all this craziness since 2020 was going to happen. The second one is wars and rumors of wars. Well, I just want to say, for one thing, that's been happening forever. That's not a new thing. But they explain in this book that wars broke out everywhere, including civil wars, in a time of great turmoil. Before I continue, let me just tell you a bit about who these men are that wrote this book. Their names are Harold R. Eberly and Martin Trench. And it says, as pastors, we used to believe and teach the futurist view, which is the belief that the prophecies in Matthew 24 and Revelation are yet to come. I believe I explained this in the last video. So now these pastors are partial preterists, and there are also full preterists who believe that all of the prophecies in Matthew 24 and in Revelation have already passed. But they say, we used to believe in the futurist view. However, even as we taught our church congregations the related ideas, we both realized that there are many scriptures that simply do not fit into the scenario of events proposed by the futurists. And many probably will disagree with that, especially upon first hearing that. But when you read this book and read some of the revelations in this book, it's amazing. I was stunned. Number 3, famines. And I talked about this in the last video. There was a great famine around the time of AD 70 because they cut off their food supply for 4 months. Earthquakes in various places. They talk about the most prominent one being the earthquake in Pompeii. Number 5, great persecution. The persecution that these Christians faced at that time was unfathomable. Number 6, false prophets and false Christs who demonstrate great signs and wonders. That's explained in the book. Number 7, gospel is preached throughout the world. They explain how that could be a possibility. Number 8, when they are told to flee from the rooftop and housetop. Now, I talked much more in detail about this in my previous video, so I recommend you go watch that. Number 9, judgments. Number 10, 2 witnesses. They actually talk about 2 witnesses who prophesied for 42 months. Number 11, the 144,000 martyrs. Number 12, they talk about there being a spiritual temple now, not a physical one. So the temple that's talked about as if it's coming in the future is not a physical temple. And we know that even, that our bodies are temples. And for more about that, you can go to Ephesians 2, verses 19 to 22. 13, the man of lawlessness and the restrainer. Now, this is not explained to a T in this book. What I mean is they give some possibilities of what this could be. And so you'll just need to read it and make up your own mind. And maybe you'll read it and say, well, no, I don't agree with that, or any of those possibilities. And that's fine. But I just want to let you know that they do talk about it in this book. and they do explain what it could be. Number 14, they talk about the end times. So their belief is that the apostles lived in the end times, and they give some compelling evidence for this. And they give compelling evidence for all of these things, and the one I'm about to mention. But I believe that as well. I believe the end times were actually before Jesus was crucified. I believe that's what the end times were. And finally, the disciples' questions. They ask Jesus, number 1, when will these things happen? Number 2, what will be the sign of your coming? And number 3, what about the end of the age? They explain these in this book, and the Gospels confirm each other. And that's not the only time. In a minute, I'm going to talk about how the Gospels confirm each other in an incredible way. Something that was right there in front of us all along, that we haven't seen yet for one reason or another. I believe God is just lifting the veil now about all of this. I believe that's what's happening. And I believe some of us are meant to share this message. Even as hard as it is, it's difficult to share this message because I know it's very controversial. And I know there are people who would come against me. But as I've said, I'm just sharing the information. You don't have to take it on board. You are certainly free to decide what you like. Futurists believe that the Abomination of Desolation is talking about the Antichrist when he destroys the temple halfway through the tribulation. Abomination means detestable thing, and desolation means ruins. This detestable thing is the Antichrist that will bring the temple to ruins. Now, let me say this one thing first. There are some scriptures that I'm going to read here from the Gospels, but they talk about the holy place. And the holy place in Greek refers to a locality. It doesn't refer to a building. It's never used in reference to a building. Matthew says holy place, but Luke says Jerusalem, which is a locality. So the holy place is Jerusalem. And like I said, that's confirmed by Matthew and Luke. Now let's see if you notice the difference here. Matthew 24 verses 15 to 16 says, "Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand," that's in brackets, "then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains." And then the same scriptures in Luke chapter 21, verses 20 to 21. "But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then recognize that her desolation is near. Then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains." And then in Mark chapter 13, verse 14. "But when you see the abomination of desolation standing where it should not be, then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains." So you see, Matthew says the holy place, but Luke says Jerusalem. That's how we know that Jerusalem is the holy place, or the holy place is Jerusalem. Now this is the crazy thing. Did you notice? Matthew says, when you see the abomination of desolation, but Luke says, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies. And that's what they say is meant by the abomination of desolation. That's what they're explaining in this book. That's what they're getting to, is that the abomination of desolation is when Jerusalem was surrounded by the Roman soldiers, by the army, and they destroyed the temple, because Luke and Matthew confirm it. Okay, now that's the first thing. Now here's the second thing. We're going to talk about Daniel 9. And Daniel 9 talks about the 69th and 70th week. Many Christians believe the 70th week is referring to the tribulation. Futurists see the 70th week happening 2,000 years later. Preterists see the 70th week happening after the 69th week. Now, that makes the most sense to me. But let's continue. Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. Futurists say that verse is talking about the Antichrist. But they suggest here that it's talking about Jesus. They note that verses 25 and 26 are talking about Jesus. So why would all of a sudden the 27th verse be talking about the Antichrist? I'm just going to read these scriptures to you. This is verse 25. "So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there will be 70 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be built again with plaza and moat, even in times of distress." Okay, so they're talking about Jesus. Verse 26, "Then after the 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing, and the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and its end will come like a flood. Even to the end there will be war. Desolations are determined." And verse 27, "And he will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering." And now it's explained, and futurists believe this as well, that a week refers to 7 years. I just suggest you go do your research about that. But I believe they do talk about that in this book as well. So futurists believe that this verse is talking about the Antichrist, that he will make a firm covenant with the many, with the Jews, for 1 week, which is 7 years. But in the middle of that week, he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering. So in the middle of that week, which is 3.5 years, he will put a stop to the sacrifice. And so that's when they believe he will come in and destroy the temple. They go in to talk about the favor of the Jews and why that stopped and all of that. They explain all that in here. But what I want to get to, like I said, they believe this verse is talking about Jesus. And they believe that the reason the sacrifices stopped is because Jesus was crucified. He died. That's why the sacrifices stopped, because he became the ultimate sacrifice. And the reason God's favor ended was because the Jews rejected Jesus. That's why judgment came upon them. That's why the Roman soldiers came upon Jerusalem in AD 70 and destroyed the temple and persecuted Christians. When I read that, the idea that Jesus is the one that that verse is actually talking about, I just couldn't believe it. I was just beside myself. I say I couldn't believe it. I can believe it now. You know what I mean? I was flabbergasted. So those are just some of the gems that are in this book. Again, I recommend you go listen to my last video and get this book. I just can't recommend it enough. If you want to watch that video, that will pop up on your screen. So you can just click on the link and go watch it. I hope you found this video astonishing. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. If you did, and if you like this video, please share it and give me a like. And if not, that's okay too. I'm just putting the information out there for whoever wants to hear it. Thank you for watching. God bless you.